Hello and welcome back to CWU Live. We've got a bumper show for you today. Later I'll be talking to Ken Woolley, the new Telecoms officer for the union, and I'll close by speaking to Paul Kennedy about the recent Midlands conference for Royal Mail members. First though, to the post office. From scandal to scandal, lies, denials, prosecutions and national humiliation, this once great national institution has a reputation in tatters. And with everything we now know, you might have assumed the post office would have been shamed into a different approach. Perhaps you might think we'd see a company showing more care, more justice and more reason for hope. Instead, we got something very different. Yesterday, bosses at the post office set out plans to close more than 100 branches, which could mean over 1,000 job losses. The company say the proposals are part of a consultation, but we all know what that means. If you ask local communities whether they're happy with post office closures, they'll say no. If you ask post office workers whether they're happy with closures, they'll say no, but that won't stop management trying to carry on regardless. For their part, post office management are suggesting shutting down the Crown Post Office network is necessary to improve the remuneration package offered to sub-postmasters. That's their claim. But speaking to Sky yesterday, CWU General Secretary Dave Ward suggested that excuse didn't stack up.
Our honest view is that the plan to support a new deal for postmasters, which we have argued for, we were the first to argue for the need for that on the back of obviously what's happened with the Horizon scandal. We completely support the need for a new deal for postmasters, which means that they need to get significantly higher remuneration. What we can't agree with is that the way that they achieve that, which seems to be Nigel Rowton's plan, is to scrap the Crown Office network, to scrap over 1,000 jobs. And we believe included in that is also to reduce the overall size of the post office network
in saying that,
by about 2,000 offices.
In saying that, Dave, you know, the post office would turn around and say that actually these Crown branches, and those are branches that are run directly by the post office, do not largely make money. They lose money. And in the end, that's why they need to go.
Well, look, the honest position there is that the whole of the post office network potentially loses money. It's been subsidised by the government. What we are being told, the cost of the losses in the Crown Office network is around £30 million a year. Now, we'd like to see those numbers. We'd like the opportunity to put forward alternative proposals. We believe that the future of the Crown Office network can be secure and jobs can be secure if they was to consider proposals such as turning the post office into banking hubs, a post bank, community hubs. There's lots of good ideas, but what we need is the time to do that, to consider the alternatives. And what Nigel Rowton has failed to do today, which is really disappointing, given the background to the way that post office managers have acted in the past, he hasn't consulted anybody on this, the key stakeholders, the people who are directly affected by this. He didn't consult our union until he told us the other week that he's actually reached a conclusion on his strategic review.
But David,
so what we're saying now to the government, and we'll be meeting the government on Monday, this is not acceptable.
So Nigel Rowton, who Dave was mentioning there, he's the former head of Camelot, which runs the National Lottery. He was made chair of the post office in May this year, so relatively new to that job. I'm joined now in the studio by CWU National Office for Post Office members, Andy Furey. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Let's just start with an update. What do we know at this point in terms of what the post office are planning?
So Nigel Rowton was appointed by the Tory government to do a strategic review. That was from May. He brought in a firm of consultants that obviously cost a lot of money, and the consultants provided a report to him, and that report has been endorsed by the Post Office Board and has been sent to government. At no point prior to the report being sent to government has there been any consultation with the CWU. The consultants' tenure never met with the union. We haven't seen the report, it's not been shared with us. We don't know what recommendations are in there. Dave Ward and I have met subsequently with the chairman and the acting CEO to discuss the strategic review, but that discussions is based upon the fact that we haven't seen the report. We don't know what recommendations are contained therein. The overarching aim, we believe, of the strategic report is, one, to make a business case for ongoing government subsidy for the next 5 years. And part of that subsidy would require the replacement of the Horizon system, which will run to anything upwards of £750 million. So we're talking about significant government support for the next 5 years. And with everything that's going on with Treasury and, you know, all of the big black hole that's been left by the previous government, finding money for the post office is going to be difficult. The other key factor in we believe, from everything that's been said, is that the post office want to give a much better deal for postmasters. Now, that's long overdue. In actual fact, many postmasters have paid a pittance. And when I gave evidence before a BES Select Committee, made the case that there was a crying need for postmasters to be paid so much better, because many of them are on less than the national minimum wage. Their ancillary business quite often subsidises the post office, and you know, the way they've been treated by successive managements has been abominable. So the CWU fully supports postmasters getting a much better deal. But what we can't support, and we will totally oppose by all means necessary, is we can't see our members in Crown offices or elsewhere in the post office, be it supply chain or admin, we can't see our members losing their jobs for the post office then to be able to pay postmasters more money. There has to be a different solution, a different option to that. So, you know, what happened earlier this week is that our members believe that they are now associated victims of the Horizon scandal, a scandal where the post office had bottomless pits of money that they could throw at lawyers, yet they can't find money for their directly employed people or postmasters. Look, the whole model is bust, and the leadership of the post office have led us into this abyss of problems, so that we're overlooking. Now, you know, something's got to give here, and that's why we're meeting with the Minister on Monday.
And I mean, the way it seems to be framed is that the post office is suggesting it's one or the other. So either we keep giving the postmasters a crappy deal, or we have to get rid of the Crown post offices, so the post offices which are directly run by the post office company. How do you push back against that? Because you can see why that's a rhetorical device for them, because they can say, well, you know, we could keep the Crown post offices, but then the postmasters are going to have to accept a bad deal.
Yeah, look, the numbers don't add up. The economics don't stack up. So they tell us that the Crowns lose between 20 and 30 million a year. That's highly debatable, and we've challenged them to do open book and have transparency of these numbers and how they arrive at their figures. Surprise, surprise, they haven't come forward with the numbers. It's just figures, big figures that that are not substantiated. There's no evidence behind that. The reality is that they could do so much more to make the Crowns more efficient and more effective, and not least of all would be going and renegotiating the overheads of property, you know, in rents and the leases with the landlords that own the premises. So, you know, and that's what any main retailer in the high street does. They go and renegotiate the prices. So there's not a desire to do that. The easy option for them is just to simply say we'll close the lot and get rid of the Crowns, and our members will be, you know, expendable and thrown on the scrap heap. We're not going to tolerate that.
And do they normally rent the Crown post office? Because I was wondering if this was that they own these highly valuable properties in city centres and they want to sell them off, but you're saying they don't necessarily own the buildings.
It's a combination. So recently there's been closures of big Crowns like Spring Gardens in Manchester, Eccleston Street and Clapham Common in London, and they have been in the main owned. So so they do want to realise the property. But what has been proven is, and the landlords have come up with this and said, look, we've been willing to offer extensions of contracts, cheaper deals. But look, I mean, this 20 to 30 million is a drop in the ocean compared to what postmasters need. And yesterday, the chairman of the post office said he was hoping to be able to provide an extra £250 million of remuneration to postmasters. So he's not going to get that by closing Crown post offices.
And what have workers in Crown post offices been told? Have they sort of been told by management, this is likely to happen, you need to prepare? Or is this just something they'll have read in the newspapers yesterday?
So this is why our members are up in arms, because it leaked on Tuesday night. And, obviously a well-placed source has leaked it. Now, call me cynical, but, was that somebody within Nigel Rowton's immediate team? It's the oldest political trick in the book, isn't it, to leak something before you announce it. So it was in the press Tuesday night. We were straight onto it. We got a press release out. I gave radio interviews on BBC Radio 4 Today programme, BBC Radio 5, and clearly we were very angry about what has happened. The chairman then addressed the workforce at 9 o'clock yesterday morning, and there was no mention whatsoever in his address that the Crowns were going to be closed or franchised, and that people will be losing their jobs. And we're talking about 1,000 people there. So, there was no recognition of what had been.
Does he not take questions? Because presumably that would be the first question. Right?
No, I mean,
it just gives an address.
It was a 15-minute, speech, and there was no acknowledgement or recognition of what was being debated in the media that morning. It was on TV, it was on the radio. So, I mean, that in itself is not good enough. And our members are annoyed that he hasn't apologised to them for them finding out by the press and media what his plans are.
And I mean, the Royal Mail is privatised. The post office is still under government control, isn't it? So is this something that the Labour Party essentially gets to decide, or?
Yeah. So that was the first mistake. This is the only post office, Royal Mail, the equivalent of in the world, that's been separated and divorced. I describe it as the umbilical cord was cut at the point of privatisation. So if you look across the world, all the other postal administrations are retail and mails combined together. So the coalition government they sabotaged Royal Mail and the post office by separating them. The post office remains publicly owned, so the government, is in charge of it, and the government for more years than I care to remember has had to put his hand in its pocket and bail out the post office to the tune of billions of pounds. So it's not new. It's not new that the post office doesn't make money. And you see this argument in the press, well, the Crowns lose money, so you're going to have to close them. That virtually the network as a whole loses money, and the post office as a whole loses money and has done for many, many years, and always needs government support for investment and for new technology, automation, etc. So, they need to have a long, deep, hard look at themselves and look to have an alternative strategy of growth, investment, and look for new products and services. That's the way forward.
And do you think I suppose there's two arguments, isn't there? Do you think there is a way that it can become self-financing, so profitable basically, or do you think that we just have to make a strong argument that this is a sort of a community asset? It's very important for local people to have a post office nearby that they can visit, therefore we need to accept that it will have to be subsidised indefinitely by the government.
Well, the Rowton business plan, transformation plan, is predicated on government subsidy for the next 5 years. So even the chairman, and he's actually open address was saying our plans are dependent on government subsidy. So I think it's pretty clear that government subsidy is going to have to continue for a considerable period of time. That means then the social value of the post office, the millions of people that visit a post office every week, needs to be taken into account. Now, we have to be mindful of the fact that the primary focus of government is to get the NHS working and schools delivering for the children. But the post office itself is a great social asset, and is visited by young and old alike, across the whole of the United Kingdom, and that value cannot be underestimated. It should be really the shop window for government services, and that was the plan some years ago. But the previous government walked away from that.
And why did they walk away from that? Just
because they
want it all to be online anyway.
Yeah, digital and online, and didn't want to prop up the post office anymore. But I mean, this is a missed opportunity, isn't it? You know, you can get your passports checked and car tax still at the post office, and there's many other things they should still be doing.
And this is something that's been sort of hotly debated yesterday in Parliament. So let's go to one clip from the House of Commons yesterday, and we'll show you a question being asked by an MP who is a CWU member, Lee Barron, and then you'll hear the answer from the Minister from the Department of Business and Trade.
In relation to the 115 potential closures and 1,000 jobs, the way in which the Post Office can go about that will be either to close the Crown Post Office network or to franchise it off. Now in Corby there's New Post Office Square, which was opened up when the town centre was rejuvenated and had a post office. There's now no post office in New Post Office Square because it was franchised into the back of a shop, and that shop decided not to extend the franchise, so therefore there is now no post office. And what we need is an assurance from the post office that they're not going to go around this and turn around and take the numbers away from us. So would the Minister agree with me that they've got to hold into account this government's priorities on the high street and make sure that whatever it is that they're doing or planning fits around the green paper that is proposing for next year?
My honourable friend will forgive me. I hope that I'm not aware of the exact circumstances in his constituency, but I'm happy to meet him to talk through them if he thinks that would be useful. As I hope I've set out to the House, we remain absolutely committed to the need to make sure that every community has good access to a post office branch and all the services that a post office provides, and that is as true for his constituents as it is for constituents across the House.
It's interesting that, because you've got a government minister saying we're going to make sure every community has access to a post office. That, you know, would seem to potentially imply opposing this, right? So what's your understanding of where the Labour Party and where the new government are on this question?
Well, Dave Ward and I are meeting with Gareth Thomas on Monday, and we're going to be pushing Gareth hard to get behind the Crowns and to get behind supporting the overall post office network. This needs to be looked at holistically. It can't be looked at by, different sections. And the point that Lee Barron made, is spot on. What has happened for many, many years, regrettably, is the post office have handed over Crown post offices to franchise partners, and then in time those franchise partners walk away from them, they close down, and then there's no service at all. Mm-hmm. So in a roundabout way, it's a closure programme via franchising, and that certainly has happened with significant numbers went to WH Smith. So look, it's fundamentally wrong. You only got to drive around the towns of the UK and see former Crown Office buildings that are in, mothballed and looking destitute and an eyesore on the high street. And the reality is, it's not just the post office and the customers that suffered. It's the associated businesses around the area, and all of a sudden a thriving local high street becomes a ghost town. And the value of the post office to the high street is phenomenal, and is once again being underestimated. But look, we're optimistic that Gareth will listen to our concerns and will come down and support us. But we're not taking that for granted, and we're not being complacent. So we will be working very, very hard to get an agreed way forward with the government. If we can't get an agreed way forward with Rowton and the post office, then we're going to go straight to government to do that.
Just so I understand correctly, so franchising, that's when they say, well, we're not going to run this as a Crown Post Office anymore. We'll sell the building, or hand over the lease to WH Smith, but they'll have a little window inside the shop as a post office, and ultimately it gets shut down. Is that?
Yeah, in the main, the post office building closes and the post office service moves into a premises that's already there. Yeah. But it's no guarantee it's going to remain there for it. And there's many too many examples, unfortunately, where the post office service has gone in 3 or 4, 5 years' time, and the customers and the public lose out altogether. Yeah. The model's broke. Franchising doesn't work. And you see, if the post office has a 100% franchised operation, it loses all control. Whatever post office, because it would be run by solely independents, and many of those independents, as we've said earlier on, they're on a pittance. They can't make ends meet, and they're in an extremely vulnerable situation as well. So, look, this company has been terribly run by senior management after senior management for many, many years. It's been in gross incompetence. And, you know, this Horizon scandal is the tip of the iceberg for the way that this company has been allowed to decline in such an appalling way.
And you've said you and Dave are going to be talking to the Minister next week. So obviously there's sort of lots of avenues by which you can try and stop this from happening, save those jobs, save those post offices. If those conversations don't go well, is industrial action going to be on the table?
Well, our members are extremely angry. I don't think I've seen them as angry as this before. And to be fair to our Crown members in Crowns, they're not slow in coming forward to take on the employer when they need to. You know, they've got a good record, good history of standing up for themselves. But the feedback from all of our representatives is that they are absolutely outraged. They feel undervalued, disrespected, and you know, I'm certain that this would lead to a very healthy ballot for a strike action should we need to do that. I mean, that's something that is in our armoury if we have to go down that path. We won't hesitate to do it if it's required, but we're not at that stage yet. You know, there needs to be proper negotiations, meaningful, genuine dialogue. The union's voice needs to be heard, and we need to be able to have a significant influence on the final outcome. If we don't get that, then yes, we will consider balloting our members.
We'll talk about public opinion in a moment and how that might be able to be leveraged. But to introduce that part of the conversation, let's go to a clip from this week, which is a reminder of how much people working in this industry are really valued, actually, by the public. So this is Susanna Reid speaking on Good Morning Britain, and she's here making a passionate defence of posties.
I also want to pay thanks to our amazing network of posties, who also, it feels like an endangered species. Yesterday I got one of those dreaded, we tried to deliver but we couldn't from the post office. But then a couple of hours later, knock at my door, and the postie said, I thought I'd come back to bring you this because I thought you might need it today. And I just thought, that, you know, that is, you don't get that kind of personal service from many people these days, but your local postie...
I don't you get it from Amazon?
No, well, to be fair, Amazon always leave by the shed.
To be fair? on your doorstep or your windowsill for a passing
And you think I'm going to get home soon to pick it up.
Because they're using courier firms, aren't they? A lot of Amazon stuff isn't directly Amazon-employed people. And the people who are delivering are under the cosh. Because they're on very low money and they've got to whiz around really quickly. But I think you talk to posties, they think privatisation's been a disaster because all the joy is going out of their job. They're being absolutely regulated all the way. The burden of the work has gone up. Well, I agree. You want to know your local postie. You want that postie to have that round and they become part of the community,
really
and it's reassuring as well as delivering a service.
And they know your neighbours.
They do.
So very often they'll say, I've left it with, you know, who's it, what's it, at number whatever. And you think that's because they're regular. And that kind of,
and they kind of keep
it's a
an eye on
tradition
things
we're
as well.
losing.
I mean, my postie last week knocked on the door, had some mail, and I said, why don't you just put it through? He said, because you've left your car door open. Did you not know? Your car's open. That was terrific. I'd come home, you know, gone to bed for an hour and left the car door open. So he was keeping an eye.
So, I mean, privatisation makes that conversation a bit confusing because they're talking about post offices being closed and then they end up talking about Royal Mail and posties. But most people assume these are the same organisation and the same workforce.
Well, that's why it's an artificial divorce, isn't it? Because, you know, Royal Mail, post office go hand in hand, and it's seen as the synergy is absolutely clear. And of course, the CWU's DNA runs through the whole of Royal Mail and the post office, and with our members. But I mean, look, our members, wherever they are, do a magnificent job. They should be applauded for everything they do. They're out in all weathers, facing, you know, all difficult situations. And you know, getting back to post offices, the feedback we're getting is that the customers have been coming in, talking to them, saying, we really hope your post office doesn't close, hope you still have a job going forward, thank you very much for everything you're doing. And we've had reports of managers saying to our members, oh, you can't comment on this, you know, trying to put a gag on them. We can't have that. our members have got to be able to talk to the public, and freedom of speech is still allowed in this country. So it just goes to prove how small-minded the post office management are when they're trying to even stop our members talking to customers who are genuinely concerned about the service, the community, and our members' jobs.
Yeah, and they're like, we want you to go quietly. Don't even talk to your customers about why they might like the service you deliver. Let's go to some comments. Knavish Dave, always busy in my post office. Reducing post office hubs will just create space for competitors to move in anyway. Redditch CLP Zoom, so presumably that's a Labour Party. My local Crown office in Redditch is on the list. Our Labour MP Chris Blore has launched a petition in conjunction with the local paper. And Cy London says the post office know the price of everything and the value of nothing. I'll let you go in a moment, Andy. I suppose, first of all, maybe a response to those comments, but I suppose an observation I have, or a reflection, is that you do have a situation where the employer here is very, very unpopular among the public. Like there are a few institutions which are now seen as more incompetent and malevolent than the post office because of obviously the Horizon scandal. And as that clip from Susanna Reid showed, there aren't many workforces that are more sort of universally quite liked than people who work in the post office and posties. So it does seem like if there were to be a public campaign, there is, some hope that could be successful.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the post office is cherished by the public, society as a whole, and despite the Horizon scandal with the corruption that is involved in that, the public know that our members have integrity. They know postmasters have integrity and their staff. The organisation itself is wonderful, even though it's been led by people that have tried to drive it into the ground. I mean, a little known statistic is that not so many years ago, the post office was the second most respected and cherished brand behind Coca-Cola. Now its reputation and brand image is shot to pieces, and that's because of the way it's been led by the managers, the directors, the board it has over many, many years. And it does appear they haven't learnt the lessons of the past. But look, in terms of campaigning, we would be absolutely convinced that the public will get on our side, as indeed we would expect politicians and even Tory politicians that are now jumping up and down when they might not have been so keen to do so in the past.
Yeah.
So look, the debate in Westminster yesterday spoke volumes about it, because it wasn't just Lee Barron talking about it. There was politicians from other parties opposed to the closure of the Crown Post Office as well. So look, we will be making that point clear to Gareth, and he heard the debate and replied to the debate yesterday, so he will know the strength of feeling politically that's coming up from the constituency and the public at large.
Andy Furey, thank you so much for giving us that update today. Really very much appreciated. I'm sure we'll speak to you again on the show very soon.
Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak.
We've got a report now from Greg Charles. He's branch secretary for London South West Postal. After that report, you'll hear a response from CWU Outdoors Assistant Secretary Tony Booch.
We're here at Peckham and East Dolly's delivery offices. We're going to talk to the members directly about network changes, see what their concerns are. Let's go and talk to them.
I've been in the job 25 years. I'm the workplace co-chair. I've seen lots of changes for people. I used to live quite local, but with the cost of living in London, eventually I had to move out. My commute in and out of work was fine, no problem with that at all. It then got to the stage where obviously our later days were creeping in, changes in hours, changing in schedules. You could get home at a decent hour if you finished at 2 o'clock. It has made quite a big impact because you don't get any family time. We're coming out in the dark, we're going home in the dark now. There is no work-life balance.
I have two elderly parents who generally most times after work I will go and see, but with the later finishing and start and finishing times now, it's very hard for me to get to them to help and assist them. End of the day, yes, we are in a job, but everyone keeps going about mental well-being. There's certain people out there who, I would say, are struggling because obviously the impact it's made on their personal life.
I don't think management are very realistic on everything what goes on, because things don't get done on a computer. Things get done on real life and on feet. And this is what they don't understand. It's impossible to do a whole frame of letters and 90 tracts, 100 tracts in the time allocated. You haven't got capacity in trolleys, you haven't got capacity out there because there's no bag drop places because they took them all away on the last resign. So what do they want to do? People coming in now, I feel sorry for them. Sometimes I think we're fighting a losing battle because it's just being railroaded in.
It is a struggle. I think a lot of these things are wasteful, especially we find, especially on a Monday, especially on a Saturday. I don't understand why we have these later starts when the work is coming in sometimes at a really late time. I mean, we talk about, the Royal Mail talk about they want, you know, productivity and all this and the other. But when you're having a lot of this work coming in at 8:45 at night, 8:45, 8:50, and our sort of work time's till 3 o'clock, how can they expect us to get everything done that they want done? They're fed up, you know, you can't get changes.
So in terms of fed up, I mean, it's encroaching onto the work-life balance that you have. So, the people with families and obviously looking after
I'm in a different thing because my children all grown up. But if I was in that situation where I was, say, 20 years ago, my children were at school and my wife works and all that, and we haven't got people to pick the kids up on a regular basis, that would really hit it because you're changing times later and later.
I'm a carer.
Right,
from my mum.
okay.
My mum got Alzheimer's, I'm a carer.
Right.
So I need to get back to sort her out, and I'm getting home later. So it has impacted me, but that's what it is.
Right, so the beauty was because of finishing that little bit earlier, you had that more time during the day to go for your mum.
Came from my mum,
because everything's now being pushed back. You're feeling that work-life balance.
Exactly, because initially that's why I actually took the job, because of the flexibility of the job.
Another great morning meeting the members. Network changes. There was a crossover with some of the operational stuff around seasonal variations as well. We touched on a lot of personal issues with people, whether it was their caring responsibilities, their own personal travelling into work and home in the dark, and the mental health issues that it has on them. From now, though, we've got to take these issues, we've got to put them into some format of negotiations and making the changes that the members need. So until next time, thank you.
Hi, thanks to the members in Peckham for their feedback. It's really important that the CWU is listening to the members day in, day out, and obviously trying to tackle some of their issues. So let's pick up some of those issues. So we've got later start and finishes. Look, we know it impacted on the members up and down the country. We are currently doing the post-optimisation review to see if we can further mitigate that. So a number of issues emanate from it. We've got a live issue with regards to the Saturdays and the Mondays. The union is absolutely crystal clear that we believe more can be done to enhance the current start and finish times in those delivery offices. And we're hopeful that we'll be in a position where we can start to make some announcements on that in the next couple of weeks. Members will see some benefit before peak, where we improve those start and finish times in their respective offices, particularly for the Saturdays. The Mondays will be linked to some USO reform, but we're clear, and we've told Royal Mail that we want to see that, and I'm hopeful. I think when I do the next live session, we'll be able to address that point. Picking up a couple of individuals referenced the family friendly, their mental health and well-being. And the way in which it's impacted on them. And I've picked that up in correspondence with Royal Mail to say that obviously a number of officers going out later, finishing later. We're getting into the period now where it's, in some areas of the country, it's dark by sort of 3:30, 4 o'clock, depending on the weather. and we've got to factor that into the overall reports that we receive. So is there more slips and trips? Is there more individuals going off with their mental health and their well-being as a result of the fact that they might come to work in the dark and finish in the dark? We know that impacts on individuals, so we're alive to that, and we will review that going forward. And I think the final one was around trust, which I think is a big issue in delivery offices. And I think I referenced this a couple of weeks ago when we did the live session. You know, postmen, postwomen do fantastic jobs in Royal Mail. They cover 33 million addresses each day, 6 days a week. And, you know, in the job that they do, you know, they're covering anywhere between 8 and 13 miles on average a day. And I think one of the individuals referenced the fact that his call rate and the parcels he delivers just doesn't have enough time. And we've got to find a way where our members say to their managers that that job is not achievable, and they're trusted and empowered that when they give that feedback to their manager listens and gives them achievable workload. So look, I think when we do some of our future sessions, we'll be able to elaborate on that in a bit more detail. But I think it's really positive that I think the union is alive to those members' concerns, and we can address them going forwards.
Thank you to Greg, Charles and Tony Booch for that report and that response, and everyone who spoke to Greg in the Peckham and East Dulwich delivery offices. So we've discussed already tonight CWU members in the Post Office and Royal Mail. So for some balance across the union, let's move on to our Telecoms and Financial Services members. And to do that, I'm delighted to be joined online by newly elected National Officer Ken Woolley. Ken, first of all, congratulations on the new role, and thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you, Michael.
Let's get going by learning a bit about you. Can you tell me about your journey through the union?
Well, it's a very boring story, really, but, you know, I started off as an engineer for BT, you know, did plenty of pole climbing and maintenance in residential and business customers over many years. And I worked in a control for a while. It's technically my last job for BT, but during that time, the place was rife with bullying and harassment, to the point where, you know, literally on a Friday afternoon, the management would take people out into a little room and have a conversation with them, and then they'd come back like a broken person in tears. And it went on for a while, and no one was standing up for them. I joined the union committee in about 1989, which is a different story. You know, I got dragged along to an AGM, and suddenly I got nominated and elected onto the committee. So I wasn't willing to put up with what I saw going on for our members, and I just became more involved in the branch, and effectively became the chair of the branch, and then branch secretary, of which I did for some 23 years, I think. The 12 of which I also had another hat on and joined the Telecoms exec. So that's where I've been, really.
So you represented sort of members all throughout the union. You sound very well qualified in your new role. Talk about the challenges you think you're going to be sort of prioritising in your new role, especially when it comes to telecoms. Lots of people, you know, artificial intelligence, the big buzzword about, people presumably worried that might displace some jobs in the industry. What are you sort of thinking in terms of where your focus and attention is going to be?
Well, we're specifically trying to get meetings set up, and we want some governance really with companies really about AI and how it can be used, you know, and make sure that we've got those protections in place about data protection and how data could be used actually not necessarily for people but against people. So we need to actually get on top of that, and I think that's across the TUC as well. It's not just you know, specific to our industry, but you know, it's a big piece of work, and obviously job security for our people on the back of that is something that is paramount. And you know, my thoughts are with people that today, you know, the post office announcement and those people in for instance, you know, Homebase. You know, they came to work this week expecting to have a job at the end of the week, and now, you know, it's just a very, very unnerving time when people are being put at risk of redundancy, and it's an unfortunate situation that companies are facing right across every industry really, and AI could be a danger to us, but obviously it's something that is surrounding us. Everybody's mobile phone is full of AI, listening and watching what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. But some of it's for the good and some of it's not. And we've got to make sure that we get, as I said, some governance on that. And I think that's where we need to go, really.
And one of your big roles as a national officer is to sort of keep engaging with members, keep communicating with members in your sections, find out what they're concerned about, what they want you to be fighting about. What are your plans in terms of how you're going to sort of keep on the pulse of your section of the union and your section of the workforce?
Well, one thing I've always tried to do is I've maintained links with my local branch, where I've served for many years. And I've always wanted to keep, grounded on that basis. But one of the things that we can do, and I know it's sort of like talking about a bigger picture about communications, full stop. I think that one of the things that we're not so good at is engaging our members enough. For instance, me and my national team might be engaged with management at very, very top level, but we're not actually getting members' feedback and knowing what the grassroots issues are. And I think that we've just got to get more and more people on the ground involved and build up rep structures where it's, even if they're just points of contact, they don't have to get involved in the union if they don't want to, but having those people and the voices and the feedback from the shop floor, as you like to call it, or engineers out on the road, knowing what their day-to-day issues are and never losing sight that they are the union, that's the whole point. So I think that's where we need to go.
And one of the issues sort of on people's minds will inevitably be pay. So I know it's Karen Rose who will be leading on sort of negotiations with BT. But what could you tell members sort of about what they, can be expecting, let's say, for next year's deal, or if you can give sort of any update for them on that?
I can't give an update on BT Pay. I mean, obviously, I represent people in other businesses as well. And of course, the greatest excuse businesses are going to throw at us this year is going to be the burden on the national insurance payments that they've got. And I'm sure that'll be the first thing that every company is going to come back to us and say, oh, we're not sure we can give you so much pay this year because we've got this to pay. But at the same time, we know that these companies, some of these massive companies, are still earning a fortune and giving a lot of that way to, the shareholders. And it's all very well, but the shareholders aren't the ones breaking their neck in the wind and rain, climbing poles or working down holes or wherever they are in what industry. They're not the ones making the profit for the companies. And I think they're the people that should be rewarded. So, if necessary, we need people to stand together and remain strong. And then hopefully if the companies can see that we've got united workforces, they won't want to take us on, and we'll have to see how we can get, see if we can get better pay rises on that basis.
And I suppose one of the ways to sort of demonstrate unity in any union is to have very active branches and reps. So what's your message to branches and reps and union activists out there?
If I could be slightly negative for a moment and then build on that, because I think one of the things that we're all good at is that unions take the blame for what management changes. It's not the union that actually are the bad guy, the villain here. And what we've just got to remind people, it's all very easy. We're an easy target sometimes for members, and the members have got to realise by standing together, it's their unity and strength that actually is going to deliver us. And so I just want people to remember that. We've always fought for terms and conditions to try and improve everybody's well-being and livelihoods at work, in the world of work and beyond. And I think that so it's one of those old adages, and I hate to use one of the golden lines, but unity is strength, and it is. So branches need to stay strong, members need to support their branches, and we'll do the best and go from there.
And do you expect to be out meeting a fair number of people, fair number of members?
I'm hoping to. Let's just say that, you know, that I've got a brand new role, and I'll be looking across some new companies as well. So I'm starting from some of it. I'm up and running and well versed in, but in parts of new companies, I've got new teams to work with and new management structures to meet, and I want to get out there and actually build those relationships, because I believe that that's also very important.
Yeah, I mean, it is slightly more complicated in a way, isn't it, your section of the union? Because when it comes to the postal side, you've got these two mega organisations, principally, you know, Royal Mail and the Post Office, principally Royal Mail, that's where most members are. And you've got to sort of navigate between lots of different fragmented companies and different workforces and different branches and groups of workers who might have all of their own individual issues, I suppose, or own different issues. So how do you navigate that? Because that does sound quite challenging to me.
Ask me next time you speak to me. You know.
Fair enough. It's a bit too early, isn't it? We'll
give me a chance. Yeah.
We'll get an update on that very soon from you, Ken. But for now, congratulations on your new role, and we do look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yeah, thank you for the chance. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, great to hear from you. Thank you so much for that. Let's move on to our next story. This is our final story for the evening. On a recent episode, I spoke to Deputy General Secretary for Postal, Martin Walsh, about engaging local reps in Royal Mail. He's very keen to sort of increase the amount that happens. And in Birmingham this week, that is exactly what happened. So Midlands Divisional Rep Paul Kennedy and his colleagues organised a Midlands conference that drew in over 200 attendees. The conference covered industrial issues, politics, education and training. And Paul joins us now. Welcome to the show, Paul. Thank you so much for being with us. To begin, tell us about the event and why you put it together.
Well, as you've indicated, the DGSP has tasked all divisions with getting an all reps meeting conference, and we'd arranged ours, as you've mentioned, for Tuesday. So we put a really ambitious agenda together, which included, obviously, Martin being able to report to the conference on some of the big ticket issues in Royal Mail together with the national officers. But we also extended it to get a couple of ex-regional CWU secretaries, Midlands regional secretaries there, one of which you've just featured earlier on the show, where we had Lee Barron, who used to be a Midlands CWU regional secretary, who's now an MP for Corby and East Northampton. We had Kate Hudson, who used to also be one of our Midlands regional secretaries, who's now become the Education and Equality Officer, and she was able to report about the new packages that are available for reps training. And we even managed to fit in at the end a little bit about pensions, because I'm a trustee of the Royal Mail pension plan. So it was a really packed agenda, but the feedback that we're getting is really, really positive. It exceeded all of our expectations. We're very, very pleased, and with the level of engagement and the opportunity for local reps to discuss directly with their national officers a lot of the big ticket issues that are happening in Royal Mail. So we're really pleased with the way it went.
Yeah, I suppose good for morale, good for networking. Were there challenges in organising it? I suppose if someone's watching this from a different part of the country. I mean, I know other people have also been organising regional conferences, not something that doesn't happen elsewhere. But if anyone was thinking, should I organise one of these? Would you have any sort of advice for making it happen?
Well, actually, probably the starting point for it is you need to go and speak to the regional operations directors, and we've got two divisions, Midlands and South Midlands, to get them to agree to pay for the release for the reps to be able to come and spend a full day with us. So that's a starting point, is get their cooperation, which they did, which we're very appreciative of. So we managed to get our reps released on full pay. Otherwise, it starts to run up the costs. And then obviously, we need to get the diaries into the diaries to coordinate a date where all the officers can come, which again is, that's not easy because they're very, very busy people. And then the rest of it is about locations. We managed to do it in the Birmingham branch. We just about got everybody in. There was over 200 there. And then obviously other guest speakers like Lee and Kate being able to get their diaries. And then, of course, what you've got to do, you've got to feed everybody. So you're only having a 45-minute lunch break. So you've got to work out how can we get 200 people fed in that time. And we shipped in a load of Indian food vegetarian meat options, which I think for some people the Indian lunch was the highlight of the day. But they're doable. They are doable if people just approach it in a logical order.
And I suppose it's good for sort of really re-engaging with reps as well, isn't it? Because they're sort of the link point between the union and the sort of wider membership. Was that feedback you got from the conference?
You could tell from the engagement on the day that, you know, I'm lucky to Divisional. I get lots of direct engagement with the officers. Area representatives get quite a bit, but the local reps who've been through a tough years, you know, and it's a tough job on that front line. I think that opportunity to hear directly, unfiltered, face-to-face with the officers and the Deputy General Secretary, and then what was crucial, and we were very, you know, we made sure all the officers and Martin knew this, they had to put time aside to allow for feedback, questions, contributions. And I think what came back was very valuable to them. There's some stuff around the Universal Service Review where it was very clear from our conference that our members very much value the Wellington Week delivery system, and whatever happens on the USO review, we've got to find a way to maintain that as an option for delivery members. So I think there's clearly a desire from our local reps to be able to have that engagement.
You're getting some good feedback in the comments. Paul King says, fantastic conference, very well run. So congratulations. While we've got you here, can we get a bit of an update from the Midlands and how everything is going with Royal Mail? I understand there's been some managerial changes. Has that sort of increased positivity filtering through to divisional level?
Well, they've taken one of the regional operations director, John Tippler, from South Midlands, and he's now gone down to take over the London division where there's a rod vacancy. And we got on very well with John. So it wasn't something that we particularly welcomed. They've put in a temporary acting regional ops director, and I think they're going to go out and do what they do in terms of the business, and they'll appoint somebody in January. Whether that, you know, and who that's going to be, I don't know. I've been around so long that I don't get overly excited about these things. We'll deal with whoever they put in front of us, and if they want a productive working relationship, we will offer that to them. If they want one that's more difficult because the way they behave, then that's how we'll respond. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see who comes in front of us around about January for the South Midlands. But in the Midlands, Kate Seals, we've had Kate for some years now, so we've got an established working relationship.
It sounds like a very sensible attitude to bring to these changes. We clipped the show afterwards into small segments. Obviously, it was really brilliant to have you on. So could we give you the chance just to send a message directly to members in the Midlands division?
I think our message is, look, we know that it's been tough for a couple of years. We know there's still some residual backwash about the agreement, and we know that in a lot of delivery offices, the resourcing is not good enough, and management are not clearing the walks every day, and that's not acceptable. And we continually push management about that, because it's going to be very difficult for them to ask members to consider a change in the way we do deliveries and all the mail centre implications and distribution if they can't currently clear the mail. And so we've got to get on top of that. There's a lot of revisions that are now parked up until January, and then we'll have to see what happens with them. But we were fully aware that it is not a great place in deliveries in particular at the moment, and we do push management all of the time to get their resourcing sorted out, and to do more to try and retain staff that they do employ, because part of the problem we've got with the new terms and conditions, it's a bit of a revolving door. New staff come in, they're not treated very well, and they leave quite quickly. And so we're forever having this resourcing cycle going on. So, we appreciate that it's not great out there at the moment. We are trying to get the resourcing settled down. But they're moving into peak. They've got to get that resourcing sorted out if they want to have a successful peak.
Paul Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate you coming on, and we're continuing to get great feedback about the conference in the Midlands. So congratulations on what seems like it was a great success.
Thank you very much.
And that about does it for us this week. So thank you so much for tuning in to CWU Live. As always, we really appreciate you being here and supporting us. So if you do have a question you'd like answered, or something or someone you'd like to see on the show in future, or perhaps you wanted to share your thoughts on things so far, comment down below, or you can email us at info@cwu.org. We'll see you again next week. Until then, stick with your union.